Hi friends, we are going to be building a full stack project in Spring Boot and Angular. So basically this is not necessarily a CRUD application. This is more like a semi-advanced course. So we are going to be looking at Spring Boot, Spring Security, authentication, authorization, JSON Web Token. We're going to be using MySQL for database, and we are going to be having different kind of users. We are going to be having an admin user and a regular user. So there are some endpoints an admin can access, and there are some endpoints a user can access. So they are going to be authenticating and authorizing them using different roles and permission. So this is the entity of a user. A user has a name, an email, a city, a role, and yeah. So before we dive in, let's just test the application to see how it works. And before that, I'm saying this is also going to be we're going to be using Angular 17, which is a new Angular that there are some changes which we are also going to be looking also in this course. So let's quickly log in and test the application to see how it works. So for login, I'm just going to log in as a user first. So let's say user, I'm just going to pass in a wrong password. It's going to tell me bad credential. So I'm just going to, because the password is actually wrong, I'm just going to pass in the right password here. When I log in, you can see it takes me to the user profile page. And where user can access the profile page, but you cannot edit. Yeah, so let me log out and log in again as an admin. So password is admin. I log in. We can see I've been logged in as an admin. And here, as an admin, I can update my profile. When I click on that, I can update my profile. So let's just change this city to, let's say, um London updates. Are you sure? Yep. We can see it has been updated to London here, and this is my users management page, and there are other kind of users as well. So yes, I can go to my users management page. I can perform some actions. I can add a user here. Let me just say, let's call this Louis, Samantha, Hassan, email. Let's say Louis at gmail.com. Password, let's say Louis. Select role, let's just make Louis an admin. City, Mumbai, and register. Okay, this has been registered. We can see Louis over here. And yep, I can delete that user, I can update the user as well. I can change the role to the user. Probably the name to, let's just say Mary. Let's just say just Mary Hassan update. Are you sure? Yeah, we can see now it now Mary Hassan. I can delete that user. It has been deleted. And that's that. I can click on log out, and as immediately I log out, it redirects me to a login page. So if I log in as a user, let's just log in as a user, and I try to access the page that is meant for an admin. Let's say an admin is a users page, is going to redirect me to a login. If I try to access, let's say, a register page which is meant for admin, is going to redirect me to a login page. So this is just the Angular, front end implementation. We also have the back end implementation where we have dynamic routing and other roles and permission and Spring security involved. So let's dive in. So let's get to work. We're going to start by writing our backend implementation. So I'm just going to go over here, go to start.spring.io, and here I'm going to use this to bootstrap my backend. So we're going to be using the Maven for compilation. Then I'm going to be sticking to the latest long-term release, which is 3.2.4. I'm just going to call this Figure Dev, and the name is just going to be just management system. I'm going to be making use of Java 21. You can use any other version you have. the packaging is jar. I'm going to add my dependency. Going to make it a Spring Web, our Lombok, which is going to be helping us generate our data and setters. I'm going to use JPA for our database mapping. I'm going to also use a Spring Security, and I'm also going to use my SQL database. You can use any other database of your choice. And everything seems good for now. I'm going to generate. You can see it has been downloaded for me. I'm going to my downloads. I'm just going to unzip it. I'm going to open that in my IntelliJ. Open new project, downloads, user management. I'm going to open it. And it's going to try to run some configurations for me. So at stars is running at the background. I'm going to be adding my JWT dependency. So we are just going to here Google just type for JSON Web Token Maven. So we're just going to go over, click on this, and here we are going to click on this, the legacy transitory dependency, which we most likely don't want to use that. But let me just click here. Here we can see that we can use just this legacy transitive dependency alone, but we are pretty recommended to use these three API implementation and Jackson. So we're just going to make use of these three. You can use just this one alone, it's also going to work. So let's just implementation, API, and Jackson. Let me open them in new window. So this is my implementation. I'm just going to make use of the latest at the time of recording. So if you can also click this to go with me, it's February 1st. I'm going to click that. I'm just going to copy this. Just going to go to my pom.sml. I think my IntelliJ is a little bit hanging. I don't really know why. So yeah, I'm going to move over here. Below this, I'm just going to add that here. This is the JSON Web Token implementation. I'm also going to make use of the API. We're going to be making use of the latest version as well. Copy that, go over here. Below that, paste that here. And I'm also going to be adding the last one, which is the Jackson. So it's basically for serialization and deserialization. I'm going to copy that as well. I'm going to also paste that here. I'm going to click on this little icon to reload and download our dependency. So as that is going, I'm just going to add my database connectivity in my application. I'm going to just going to open this up. I'll go to my resource, go to my application.property. I'm going to already have my database connectivity, written out. So I'm just going to copy that to save time. A link to the repo is going to be on the description of this, so you can easily, just go there and look at it. So I'm going to create a database called users management. If you are using a database on the cloud, you can just put your URL over here, put in your username, password, and it's going to create for you. If you're using my Postgres, this is going to be your Postgres, not no longer my SQL. So I'm just going to be using port 1010. You can choose a port of your choice. So I'm just going to create this database on my this database in my. I'm just going to create that database so you can come over here. If you're using Workbench, if you're using the shell or whatever you're using, just make sure you create a database of users management. So I can come over here, click on plus to add a database. I can just execute this schema over here. So you can also just run this at your end. And created database successful. If I refresh this, you can see users management database has been created. So I'm just going to go over here and go to my just go to my users management, and I'm going to just run this out to make sure that it was built correctly. So enable this, enable this. So since I have my Spring Security dependency, I'm just going to, this is just going to throw some kind of, default credentials for us to connect, which I'm going to be expecting. Yeah. So we can see here, this is more like this is our login password and all that. Yeah, so my application was successfully built. This is just what I needed, and yeah. All right, I'm going to continue by creating my packages. I'm just going to stop this server for now. Let's take it a little bit down. So I'm going to create my packages. So here I'm going to just create a package. I'm just going to, it's going to be where we're going to be writing our configuration, call that config. I'm going to create another package, call this controller, create our repository package. So we're going to create our service package. As we're going to create our DTO, here we have our data transfer object, and we are going to also create our entity package. So all things seems to be fine. I am going to also proceed by creating my entity immediately. Our entity is basically an ORM that helps to create our tables and create columns for us. So in the entity package, I'm going to create a class. I'm just going to call this our users. I won't want to use users. I want to differentiate the users of Spring Security from our users. So hence I'm using our users. So I'm going to create that, annotate this with at entity. A table, I just want to give this a name. Let the name be our users. I'm going to annotate it with our data from long box. This is going to help generate our getters and our setters methods. So here I'm just going to have my ID, generated value, strategy, generated type dot identity. This is going to be a private integer ID. This is going to be our ID is going to be auto generated for us, and it's going to be our unique identifier. So let's also have our string of email. Let's also have our string of a name. Let's also have our string password. Let's also have our string of city. Let's also have our string of role. And this our user is going to implement the user details from Spring Security, since we are going to be using Spring Security and just want our user to have different kind of role, and those roles will determine their assets in the application. So let's implement our Spring user details. And see the user details from the Spring Security.user details. So here I'm going to implement methods. So here for our grant authorities, I'm just going to return lists dot of new. This should be simple granted authority, and it's just going to be role. So this role is going to determine the authority this a user is going to have on our application. So that's what this does. So our username is just going to be, I want email to be the username. So email is going to be the user. When the user is logged in, we're going to be allowing the user to type in an email and the password. So the email is going to function as a username we're going to be using to authenticate a user. So over here as well, down here, I'm just going to, his account expire. I'm just going to this like his account not expire. This is more like a negation. I'm just going to make all this true, 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 true. So yeah, so that seems to work fine. And next, I'm going to write my DTO. So let's do that quickly. Go over to my DTO class here, create my DTO class. I'm just going to call this a request response. This is just going to be used for receiving a request and giving a response. For this request response, I'm just going to annotate it with as data. It's going to help generate our getter and setter. I'm just going to say include JSON includes dot not null. I'm also going to say JSON ignore properties. This is going to be ignore unknown. I'm expecting this autocomplete to be true. So what this does is, since I'm going to be making use of this class for taking a request and sending a response, so if the feeds over here are not being passed, these are going to ignore the feeds. So let me write my feeds here. So here I'm just going to have a status code. It's going to be used to return a status code, private string here error. So let me just copy this and paste it a couple of times. I'm going to have my message. I'm going to have my token. I'm going to have my refresh token. I'm going to have my expiration time. I'm going to have my name, my city, my role, password is going to be our users, is going to be our users, and here this also last is going to be our users list. Is going to be a list of our users. So yep, just code error message. We have our token, refresh token, expiration time. We have our name. We have our city. We have our role. We have our password. We have our users, and we have our user list. So this looks a little bit good for now. Let me go to my users again and see if email, name, password, city, role. So let's just make sure I have my email here. Okay, email is not here. Let me add that email here. Email. So everything seems to be set. So we are going to write our repo in our implementation in our repo. So let me see, I think, okay, there's a little bit error here. Yeah, so I'm going to my repository. I'm just going to write our repository here. So this is going to be our users repo. Go over here, new class. Let's just call this users repo. Let's just make it a little bit short. And here, this is going to be an interface. going to refactor this name Java, yeah. Interface, yeah. I was expecting that. Then I can rotate this with at repository, but most likely we don't need that because we are going to be extending JPA repository, which by default it was already annotated with that repository. So we no need to re-annotate this. So since we are going to be passing in our object and our the primary key of our object, so our object is our entities, our users. So I'm just going to pass that here, and the primary key is an integer here. So just make sure this is correctly inputted. And that's that. So here I'm just going to create some methods to find by email. I'm just going to optional. Our users is going to return an option of our users. Find by email. I'm just going to pass in the email here. And that seems to be fine. So next we are going to create our JWT util. So what that basically does is that is going to be used to generate a signature for a logged in user. And your logged in user is always going to carry that signature along, and whenever he or she wants to access the secure endpoint, is going to pass that signature in. And if that signature is authenticated by the system, is going to permit that user to access those endpoints. So that's basically what the service is all about. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to create a class. I'm just going to call this JWT Utils. It's a Java class, and I'm going to annotate with it at components or at service. You can either of that is fine. So here I'm just going to create a private secret key. This is a key, and I'm going to just create a private. It's going to be a static. Let's call this final strong. There's this called this expiration time. This is going to be the duration of our secret key of our bearer token, so to say. So this is going to be, I just want it to be 24 hours for now. Just say 24 hours is going to expire in 24. So this is going to be, let me just come over here and come over here and just do this. I'm just paste it there. So this is 24-hour long. Okay, yeah. So I have to add the long to it. Or by the way, let me just make this let's just call this a long there. So I'm just going to create a private, a public, my constructor, JWT Utils. Here I'm just going to create a key here. But then I'm just going to say secret string equals to, let me just bring this here. This is what we're going to be using to create a secret. This is the algorithm we're going to be hashing to create secret. So let me just copy that. I don't want it to type it. It's kind of a little bit long. So that's that. So here I'm just going to create a byte. I was going to call this key byte base 64. I always want this thing to generate for me. Base 64 dot get decoder dot decode our secret key dot get byte. We're going to make use of the standard character set for UTF-8. We're going to be using that to decode it. And here, I'm just going to say this dot key equal to new secret key, secret spec, which is up here, secret key spec. I'm just going to pass in the key bytes, and then the algorithm for hashing is going to be HMACSHA256. So this is more like a secure algorithm for hashing. So I'm just basically hashing this key and creating an algorithm for it, which is going to be more like a byte and sequence, and I'm just going to create that key. So next I'm just going to create a method to generate a token, to generate a refresh token, and to do all of that. So let's just call this public, then return a string and generate token. Let's pass in a user details from the Spring security. Let's call this user details, and let's return JWTs dot user dot subject, which is our user details dot get username. So we're basically hashing the username here. Is issued at, let's just create a date, new date, system dot current time utils dot expiration time, new date, system dot current time util plus our expiration time, which is this here, and sign with, we're going to be signing it with our key, which is this key, which we're actually creating an algorithm for when an object of this util is created. And then dot compact, yeah, and that seems fine. So next I'm just going to create, so for in case you want to create a refresh token, let's just create that again. Hash map string objects, and here we have our claims. User details, user details, and here we just do the same thing over here. JWT.reader dot claims, it's going to be our claims dot subject, which is this, dot issue at, which is this, expiration, which is this, sign with and compact. So this to generate our refresh token. So at the same time, let's just write method to extract our username and all of those. So public string So this basically is going to be used to validate a token. We just create extract claim, which are going to create data. We'll be passing our token. Claims, get subjects. We are just going to create this extract claims over here. Just going to copy that. Because it's going to be private method. That be generic. Token. We'll be passing this token to it. Create a function. Names. Let's call this claim function. Let's return claims function dot apply. Then JWTs parse dot verify with. Let's verify with our key up there. Now let's build the builder method. Pass major claims, just passing our token. Let's get our payload. So that seems to work fine. So let's just check, create another method to just check if our token is valid or if our token expire. So let's just do that quickly. Say boolean is token valid string token user details so name equals to extract tokens token and return. We just cast this user name equals user details the username and let's just create another one. Is another method. Let's call this is token expired. Expired. We're just going to pass in a token to it. I'm just going to create this over here. Public boolean is token expired. String token return extract claims passing my token passing my claims. I'm extracting the basket expiration. Where's that expiration up here before dates. So yeah, so this seems to work fine. Like not really working, we just written, not tested it, but we believe when we keep final, we believe this is, this is going to work fine. We are going to proceed by creating our user detail service. So come over here, see our user details service. And here I'm just going to annotate it with that service, or you can use that component. And here I'm just going to implement user data service, which is from the security, Spring Security, which we can see over here. Just going to implement the members just to get load user by username. So here I'm going to, first of all, before that, I'm just going to auto wired our repository. User repo. This is going to be users repo. Dot find by email. Person username. Dot ors true. Just if there's problem error, just throw an error. Yeah. So this is our user details service. So we are going to write our JWT Auth filter. So I'm just going to my configuration here, and I'm going to create a class called JWT Auth Filter. Again, this is going to be managed by Spring Boot, so I'm just going to annotate this with add components. I'm going to be bringing in my JWT Utils, which we just created. I'm going to also be bringing in our user data service. Call it that after this. So I'm going to, here I'm just going to extend once per request filter. So I'm going to implement my do filter internal. So here we have our requests, we have our response. So this is the first, whenever we make a request to application, this is going to be an interceptor. This is going to be the first, point of call. So this is going to just check. You can see once per filter, just going to check our request if it's authenticated, and it's just going to do the necessary thing. So this is going to be our first point of call. So here, let's write our implementation. Let's call this auth header equals to request dot get header, and here session. So whenever we make a request to our backend, this is going to be our request. It's going to collect our response, send it back. So it's in a filter chain. So here in the request, remember when it's going to since we've already generated whenever a user sign in, we're going to see that at the moment it's going to generate a token for the user. And whenever a user is making an HTTP call to our backend and is going to access our endpoint, is going to pass in that token, which is a bearer token, into the header, and is going to be passing in. So what this class is doing is intercepting that request, and here is extracting that token, which is a bearer token, from the header, and is saving it as auth header. So we're going to just check if this token is authenticated, and we're going to do the necessary thing. So that's what this line of code is. So let's just proceed and continue what we are doing. So this is string JWT. Let's call this JWT token. Okay, final string user email. Remember, the email is what we use as the username. So I'm just going to say if, just create a conditional statement. If auth header, which is this, just rename it correctly. If auth header is equal to none, or auth header dot is blank. Then we are going to filter chain dot to filter. We are going to pass in the request and response, and it's going to move to the next. So that's that. And we are going to turn. We're just going to start this work in a moment. So I'm going to also move here. I'm just saying JWT token equals to auth header dot substring. I'm just going to collect the JWT token. So here we can see this authorization. Whenever we're passing a JWT token from the front end or from wherever we are calling it from, it's going to have authorization and the bearer token. It's going to have bearer and the token. So the bearer is like are more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more like 7. So we are removing the bearer and we are actually getting the actual token, which is this. So in the we are substringing the first 7 character, which is the bearer from the specified token, and we're getting the actual token over here. So that's what that is. So user email equals to JWT Utils dot extract username JWT token. We can see in our JWT util which we created here, we actually created a class to extract our username, which is this. And when we exported this in 47, so okay, let me just put that there to get rid of the error. We actually created a method to extract username, which we are using over here to extract the username from the token which we are passing in, and that username is we're just saving it and calling it a user email. Okay, so that being said, I'm just going to say if user email just is not equals to null, and see what was your mind or dollar security context holder dot get context dot get authentication equals to null, then user details not our user details, details, let's call that user details equal to our user details service dot load username, call that user email. So we've successfully extracted our user email from our token and we are loading it here. Okay. Let's just create another if statement. If JWT util dot is token valid, and then just pass in our JWT token and our user details. Then again our security context. Let me just put this up. Equal to security context holder dot create empty context, then username password authentication token, which is token equal to new, I don't know how I'm using capital letter, new username password authentication token. And here I'm just going to say user details. No, just going to pass this in. Then user details dot get authorities. Going to pass close this up and I'm just going to say token dot set details. It's going to be new web authentication detail source. It's a builder dot build details, my request, and we are just going to say security. Security context dot set authentication, which is token, and we are just going to say security context holder dot set context or security context. Then we're just going down over here. So no, we're going down over here and we're just going to say filter chain dot to filter request response. So this is our first line of code, and from here from the code it seems to be very simple. What it's doing is just very straightforward as I tried to explain earlier. So from here is going to move us to a security config where we are going to write our security config. So here I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to create a class and I'm going to call this security config. Here we're going to be able to know which endpoints or which path we are going to allow security to be on or which we are going to insert. So just going to do security config. Yep, so this is a configuration, and here we just want to enable web security as well. To put that over there, and we are going to be bringing in our dependency as well, and this is our user detail service. This might look a little bit confusing, but just follow along and don't really worry much. Just follow along. JWT Auth Filter. So JWT Auth Filter. I'm going to proceed to create my security filter chain. So this is a bin. Let's call this a bin. Let's just public security filter chain. This security filter chain and HTTP security. Leave it at that, and let's just throw exception. If we don't throw that, it's going to yell at us. So yep, so security does CSFR. So let's disable the default configurer, abstract HTTP configurer, disable, and after that I'm just going to be I'm just going to customizer dot with defaults dot authentication. This authorize HTTP request. I'm just going to pass in my request. Just move this a little bit up so we can see what's going on here. Request. And yeah, let's just call this the request. So it's request matches. Just want to check if it matches. For now, let's just say if it matches auth and anything after, as well as if it matches anything that has to do with, let's just say public. If I have any URL I want to be publicly available, I can say if it just probably matches that, then let's just say dot permit all, then dot request matches again. If not, if my request, my path, that's my URL matches /admin, and every other thing that comes after the admin, then I just want to authenticate it with a user that have an authority of admin. I want to create another one again, request matches. Let's say this time around, let's say slash user and strategy slash probably anything that comes after. And I'm just going to say dot has authority. If it has authority user, I can probably go on and on and on. Let's just do this again and say if it has, let's say, admin user, probably this endpoint is going to be accessible by both admin and user. So probably admin user slash whenever comes along dot has authority. Here I can say okay, it should have authority of both admin and a user. So this means USAR. So this means both admin and user should be able to access endpoint to which this part. Only user should be able to access this endpoint. Only admin should be able to access this endpoint, and this other one will be accessed publicly. Okay. So yep. So that's that. And here I'm just going to say dot any request. So any other request that was not added, I'm just going to authenticate it. You get, so yeah, that's that. I'm just going to say dot session management. Just going to call this manager. I'm just going to say manager dot session creation policy. Session creation policy dot stateless and dot authentication provider is going to be our authentication provider. So I'm just going to create this authentication provider below quickly. So let's just say authentication provider dot add filter before. I'm just going to say JWT filter and user password authentication dot class. Okay. So you can see this JWT filter is being added before this thing. So that means this is primarily the entry point. This is going to do filter before. So when it receives a request, if it's authentic, if it requires authentication, it's going to pass it to this security config, and here is going to do the stuff. So let's create a bin below again, public authentication provider, and let's just call it this authentication provider here. And here we are just going to say DAO authentication provider, which is DAO authentication provider equals to new DAO authentication provider. So let us continue again. Set user data service is going to be our user data service. I'm just going to the DAO authentication provider again dot set password encoder. We're also going to create this password encoder below again. I just call this password encoder for now. And yep, we're now going to return the authentication provider. So I'm just going to create this password encoder again. It's going to be managed by Spring Boot. So it's a bin password encoder. Let's just call this password. I'm going to return the password encoder for me. And here I'm basically returning a new decrypt password encoder. And yep, so that's that. And I'm just going to create the bin below of authentication manager. Authentication manager, let's just call this authentication manager. And it's going to pass take in and just probably do this first. Then just authentication configuration. authentication configuration. One of the reasons I don't like typing, I prefer it to complete for me. So it's not going on. I just say throws exception. Move this over here. So this is just going to return authentication configurer dot get authentication manager. Yep, so this seems to be set for us. So I think if I go over here, there's more like a two error warning. Let me see what's going on. It's telling me expecting this in 44. I'm using return statement in 45. Okay, let's look at line 44 and 45. 44 expecting this and 45. Okay, you need the return statement. So we've not even built our security filter chain. So let's return http security dot build. And yep, I think the error is gone. I think we are seems to be good. So before we write our endpoint, let's create our course configuration since we are going to be connecting from the front end. So let's just create our course origin and let's just call this course config, which is basically configuration. So here I'm just going to annotate it with add configuration, and here I'm just going to, this is going to be a bin, it's going to be auto managed, and public, let's just say web MPC configurer, web MPC configurer, and it's just going to return new web MPC configurer. I'm just going to be making use of add course here. Let's just look for that. The add course mapping, which is this. Yes, this is going to be, I'm just going to say registry dot add mapping, and just going to say slash everything, every mapping. I'm just going to say dot allow methods. So I just want to allow for methods basically get post, put, delete. So these are the methods I want to allow. Dot allow origins. Where is that again? Okay. Just allow from everywhere. We don't want to. Here you can add the listed IP that you probably want to list for us. I just want to allow from all origin, and yep, that seems to work fine. So let's move to write our login registration and login, service, more like a user management service. So let's do that quickly. So I'm just going to my service again. I'm going to now, let's start our implementation. I'm just going to call this users management, let's say ROVI service. So here I'm just going to annotate this with at service. So Spring Boot knows how to handle this service. And here I'm going to wiring a lot of stuff. Also wired, I'm going to make use of my repo, which is users repo, just repo. I'm also going to be bringing in my JWT Utils, JWT Utils, JWT Utils. I'm also going to be bringing in authentication manager. I'm also going to be bringing in my password encoder, because when we are logging in, when we want to create a user, we basically convert the password to a hash format before storing on our database. So when we want to do that, we basically need a password encoder. let's call this password encoder. So this looks a little bit fine. So let's just create a method to register a user. So it's going to we already have our request and response DTO. So I'm just going to use that as well. Let's just call it register is going to pass in, take in our request response. We call it registration request. Let's just make this a little bit descriptive. And here I'm just going to say request response. No, request response equals to new request response. So here I'm going to create a try and catch, you know, exception A, if there's an exception, then I'm just going to catch it below. I'm just going to say response dot set status code. Status code is just going to be 500 and response dot set error message. Error, set error, let's just call ce dot get message. We're extracting the error from the. So if we want to know what this is our request and response. As we said earlier, this is going to be used to collect our request and send our response. So whatever we have here, JSON include and JSON ignore property is going to ignore feeds that don't have values. So if I'm using this as a request and I didn't pass an error, a message, a token, it's going to ignore those feeds. And if I'm using this as a response DTO, I'm not passing in probably, let's say I'm not passing in a password, a refresh token, or expiration time is going to ignore those feeds. So that's what this is. So let's just proceed and make this a little bit fast. So I'm just going to create our users users. Our users equals to new our users. I'm just going to say our users dot set email. I think I should just copy this and paste. Let me just do the punch. I think it's going to be very fast. Dot get email. We're going to be setting email, setting password, role, city, name, and yeah, set email, set city, set role, set. That will name before no, and set password to set city, get email. This is going to be get city. This is going to be get role. This is going to be get name. And for our password, this we're just going to be making use of our password encoder to encode our password. So here I'm just going to say password encoder dot encode. I'm just going to pass it my password dot get the actual password to the password encoder to encode for us. So this seems to be properly set. I'm just going to I'm just going to save it here, which is going to actually return our users for this dot equals to users repo, which we are auto wiring here, and we're using it to save the user. Save, and we're just going to pass in our users. Should be our user, not our users. Our user, yeah. Just create our user. So we are saving our user, and yep. So that seems fine. Let's just probably write some conditional statements, and if the results, let's say the results dot get I or is dot get ID, yeah. If it's greater than 0, ID actually start from 1, 2, 3. So if the results of our saving have returned an object whose ID is greater than 0, that means it was successfully saved. So let's just build our response objects and say set our users is going to be our user results, and we can just see our response again. Dot, let's just set a message and just say user saved successfully, and we can just probably add a status code as well. Set status code. We can just call this 200 or 201 as the case may be. So yep, so I think let's return um our no, let's return our response here. So that's that. So let's also create all our methods to log in, for refresh token, to get our users, to get user by ID, to delete a user, to update a user. So let's just write those implementation quickly. So let's write our login implementation. So I'm going to be a little bit fast. So here, let's just say public return a request response. And I call this login. I'm just going to just call this login request. So here I'm just going to create a request response. I just call this response. Just to new request response. As usual, just to our try and catch. Here exception a, and here I'm just going to say response.set status code 500 and response and return response.set message. Let us say no, dot get message. So here within our try, I'm just going to say authentication manager dot authenticate. I'm just going to pass in my new username, password, authentication token. Just going to send in my login request. Just going to get the email, dot get email, and I'm also going to get the password, comma, login request dot get password. Okay, I'm just going to, I think I should move this to the next line so we can probably see what's going on here. And yep, so let me zoom this in. Where is that? Where is that? How to zoom in? It's kind of crazy. Yep. Okay, so let me just take this to the next line. And after that, I'm just going to create a variable here. I'm just going to call this user equals to user repo dot find by email. I'm just going to get a login request. Just extract the email dot get email. Oh, let's throw an error. If it's not there, just throw an error. So I'm just going to create my JWT JWT Utils to generate token. If I JWT Utils, no, JWT Utils to generate token. What's going on here? Did I not? Okay, did I not wire that? Okay, generate token. I'm just going to, if I successfully log in, then I should generate a token. So let's just generate a token on behalf of this user, which we are finding. So we are trying to log in. So I'm going to collect the email and the password. I'm going to authenticate it, and I'm just going to, check if, just check if that email and password exists. If it exists, I'm just going to create a token for that user, which is this. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to generate a refresh token again for that user. I just call this refresh token equal to the same JWT Utils dot generate refresh token. I'm just going to a new hashman. I think I was getting the suggestion and of user. So I'm just going to do my response dot set status code. So this is going to be 200 successful. I'm going to say response dot set token. This is going to be our JWT, which is this our token. Then I'm going to do return response dot set refresh token. Refresh token is going to be our refresh token. And response dot set expiration time. I just want to return these details you get. So for what we are currently using is 24 hours. Let's just say you can use like 4 months, 1 year, depends. This is more for a test. For tutorial 6, I'm just going to use 24 hours. Response dot set message. Just to create a custom message, let's say success refill successfully logged in. That's going to be the custom message. And yep, so that's that. So let me just return my response here. So that is looks a bit okay. I'm going to add other implementation quickly. Okay, I just wrote other implementation like to refresh a token. I want us to be very fast. So this, if you want to refresh a token, we can probably pass in the token and then we just collect it, validate it, and just make sure that the bearer token that has been passed in is a valid one. Then when it is valid, then we can just refresh a token for that person, definitely a new token. So that's what this does. We might not necessarily make use of it. So this is to get our users. What I'm basically doing is user repo.find all is going to return all users for us. These are just me building my response. I'm not really much here. So this is to get a user by ID. I'm just going to pass in an ID. First, I'm just going to check if such user exists. If it doesn't exist, I'm going to throw a user not found exception. If it does exist, I'm just going to collect the user build, my response and return that user to as a response. Then this is to delete a user. The same thing, just check if a user exists. If it exists, if it doesn't exist, just say user does not exist. If it does, then delete that user and return a successful message. Here I'm catching the exception. So this is to update a user. So I'm going to be passing the user ID and the details of the user we want to update. So by the ID, just check if that user actually exists. If it's there, collect the updated details, just replace it with the new ones and then just save it. So that's pretty straightforward. And also to get my info, just we're going to be passing the email, which we are going to see how that is done. Just verify the email and return it to the user. Yeah, so these are our service have been properly built. So let's just go to here and write our controller, and then we are going to test and we'll be done with our backend. So here, I'm going to over here, just call here. I'm just going to call this user management controller. I just want my description to be descriptive. So here, just annotate it with res controller. And we're just going to AutoWire. We are going to be bringing in our private user management service, which we just concluded shortly. And yep, that's that. So first of all, we are going to be creating an endpoint to register a user and to log in. So I'm just going to call this at post mapping. When a user go to slash auth slash register, just make sure this is properly spec. Then I'm just going to create my what response entity, which is basically going to be request response, as we all know. And I'm just going to call this register. And here I'm just going to pass in our body, request body. Let's say request and response of, let's just call this registration. Let's just call this request. Yeah, reg is okay. Let's not. I'm just going to return a response entity dot okay. And I'm just going to pass in our user management service dot register, and I'm going to just pass in my request. So that's that. I'm going to create endpoint for login as well. So I'm just going to copy this. It's basically the same thing. Just here, just going to be login, and this is going to be, let's just call this login. I call it sign in. This is just going to be user dot login, and you pass in your requests. Just call this requests req. So yep, so that's that. We can also create our endpoint to get our user to, let's just do that quickly. This is going to be at get mapping. And when you, to get our user, we only want admin to be able to get our users based on our implementation we have. So slash admin slash, let's just say, go to get all users, and just going to be public, the same thing, response entity of request response, and let's just call this get all users, and this is going to be get request and return. Just copy and paste this here. It's dot get all users, get users, and we don't have to pass in anything. So let's just create to refresh a token quickly. So in case we want to create a new token, let's just do that. Here, let's just call this auth slash refresh. And here, let's call this a request button. Let's just say fresh token. So this dot refresh token. I just put in a request. So that's that. Let's also create our get mapping to get user by ID and to delete a user. So here, get user by ID. Let me just copy that. To get user by ID. So here, admin slash, let's just call this get dash user. And here we are just going to be passing a user ID. So let's create a code block here. Whatever is being passed in is going to be collected. After whatever is being passing as a slash in the URL is going to be collected as user ID. So here we are just going to say our path variable. This is basically a path variable, which is an integer. I'm just going to call the user, just call this user ID here. So this is going to be collected here and it's going to be passed in here. So this is going to be get user by ID. So that has been done, and let's also create to update a user and to delete a user. So let me just copy this and put here. So admin slash, let's just call this update slash then our user ID, and let's just call this update user. So this is going to be a path variable, is going to be there, and our request body. which we are going to be bringing in as well. Our request response. Why is this not coming up? Request response. We just call this request at. I think this should be at here. So yep, I think that's kind of fine. And yep, that seems to be fine. So here, first of all, I'm just going to say this dot updates user. I'm just going to be passing in our I'm going to be passing in a user ID and this object here, which is this and this. So what's this? This is our users and provided. Okay, this requires our users. Okay, response body. Let's our users to collect the response body. That was what was was required there. So that's that. And let's also write our implementation to get the current profile of the logged in user. Let's also do that. It's going to be a get mapping. So here, both an admin and a user should be able to get their profile. I'm just going to call this admin user. So let me go to my security config and see what was there. This is admin user. Let me just copy that here. So admin user and admin user should be able to, let's just call this get profile. Yep, then here just call this get profile. Let's call this get my profile of working user. And here we are not going to pass in anything over here. So we're just going to write some conditional statement or logic. So here I'm just going to say authentication. I just want to get the state of the correct login user. So this is going to be authentication from security core. Call this authentication. Go to security context holder, security contest holder, dot get contests, get the contest dot get authentication. And here I'm just going to say email. I just want to extract the email from the current login user. Here authentication dot get name. Since email is more of a unique identifier, so when we say get name is basically going to get the email of the of the unique identifier email, which is name, which is basically what we call email over here. Okay, let's just move forward. Let me not just make go to and fro. So I'm just going to create a request response for this response user management service dot get my info. I'm just going to pass in the email there. I'm just going to say return response entity dot status and just a response dot get status code dot body. I'm just going to pass in our response. Yep, so this looks a bit okay. So let me run an application and let's test this out. So for now, if we go to our security config, we can see that for all authentication, which is to log in and to register, are publicly permitted. Slash admin is only accessible by admin, and user is only accessible by users. So let me just make sure that everything is fine with my controller. Let me just go over everything again. I just wrote let me just check if everything is fine. This looks fine. Just check this. Slash login seems fine. To refresh a token seems fine. To get our users seems fine as well. user by ID. This if okay, okay, yeah. Doesn't really, have it doesn't really much thing to get a user by ID, to update a user, to delete a user. Yep. To update a user, this is a put request. Yep, there's gonna be a put request, put mapping to did have anything to delete a user, or to register post, refresh post, get mapping by ID, update a user is a put request. To get a user proof, okay, let's just create to delete a user. Let me just copy this as well. And this is just going to be delete mapping. And this is going to be admin. Admin should have access to delete a user. So let me slash admin slash all this delete, then slash the user ID is going to be, let's call it the delete user, and path variable, yeah. And for deleting a user, we do not need to pass in the anybody. So with the ID, just to so just okay, this service, let's just call it delete user, and just going to pass in the user ID. Yeah, so that looks a little bit okay. So let me just go here and run application, and then let's quickly do a little bit of testing to see if it works fine. Then yeah, let us bring this up. Just running. Yep, so this is started at 10:10. So let me just go to my customer and just try to get our users. Um, okay, for bidding. So what I'm going to do first, let me just try to register a user. I'm just going to go to the body. Let me just call this test city. Let's just call the Los Angeles. It's kind of the wrong way to spell city, but just keep it cool. Then send. Okay, user saved successfully. And let me add another user. Let's just call this admin. Email is admin. And role is admin. Password is admin. City is Delhi. That's what admin should be. User saved successfully. Okay. And let's create a third user. Let's just call this user. Let's call this user and city. This should be in Lagos. Send user was created. Let me go to my database. Let me just select from this dot our users. Let's just check if our record is actually there. We can see we have three users. 1, 2, 3. Our password are being hashed, and the role is correctly saved here. We have two users and one admin. So let's try to log in and see. Try to log in using an admin, because an admin logged in will be able to have access to other endpoints. So this is an admin which we registered over here, which we saw it earlier. So let me just log in with this admin. We can see admin was logged in, and the message is here, successfully logged in, and the token. So this is our token. We are going to copy this token and we're going to pass it to be able to access endpoints. So to get all endpoints, if I'm not passing in a token, I just sent it's going to come in 403 forbidding, because over here I'm saying that in the configuration, I'm saying that for you to access slash admin, you need an admin permission, which is this slash admin, you need an admin permission. So let me just go over to my authorization, bearer token. Let me just copy and paste the right one. We can see we're able to access. If I try to pass in the wrong token and send, we can see it's forbidden. So let me just pass in the right one again. We can see successful. We are able to get what our user is an array list of users, user ID 1, user ID 3, user ID, there's 2, user ID 2 here. So we're able to get this user. Let's just get user by ID. Let me just pass in my bearer token again. And let me just get ID1. The forbidden, so okay. Admin slash get user. Let me just make sure I'm passing in the right token. Alright, so that is forbidden. Let me just look at what's going on. Let's go over here, slash admin slash get users ID. Let me just copy this. Yep. To get our users, admin here. Let me just make sure that everything's fine. Okay, this should not be get users slash users ID. Yeah, that should be it. Let me just copy that again. Just say paste it there, get admin get users slash, let's just pass the ID 2. And our token is there. We can see we can get the ID. The URL was actually not correct, so that was why. So yeah, that works fine. So we've tested 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's update the user. Update and before the let me get a user info. So I can just probably just say to get the user info. What is the URL again? Admin user slash, okay, get profile. This to get the profile. So yeah, so irrespective of where you are, and get profile, admin just slash get profile. You need an authorization. Let me check here. You need authorization. So let me go to their token, go to my login, copy my bear token. So irrespective of whatever token you are using is going to get your profile for you. So get info again. So okay, let me pass it here, send. I say this is my info. So if I pass in a token of user 2, is going to return the information of that user. So let's update a user. Let's say, no, who should be able to update a user? I think admin should be able to update a user. Yeah, admin should be able to update a user. Admin slash update. So admin slash update slash 2, then just pass in the token. Update user is a put request I can see over here. So bearer token, passing the token and the body. Let's say name is admin email. Let's just change the city. Let's just call the city Jamaica. Yep. Let's just say Jamaica. We can see now Jamaica city is now Jamaica. If I try to get user by ID 2, was this 2 earlier? Yeah, I think I was 2. We can see the city now is now Jamaica. So I think Jamaica is a country actually. Well, let's just keep it simple. Yep, so everything looks fine. And yep, so that is that. Let's try to log in as a user and check if we can access these endpoints. So here, let me just say user password was actually a user. So let's try to log in. Yeah, so log as a user. So let me just try to access endpoint that are only accessible by admin. So let's say, for example, get all users should not be accessible by users, only by admin. So let me put in the token for a user and just try to hit it. We can say it's 4.3 forbidden, not have the right to access this. So let's just try to delete a user and just check if this works. So bearer token, let me try putting a user bearer token and just try to delete user 1. Let's do it user 1. So slash admin slash delete slash 1. I sent is forbidden, so let's log in as an admin and use that token to delete. Yep. Where is it again? Delete a user, just change the token. So that's higher. We can see user successfully deleted. If I try to get a user by ID 1, which was recently deleted, we can see error code user not found. So we'll try to get all users. Let me just pass in the right token. We can see all users were fine. We only have two left. Go to my database and try to go again. We can see we only have two users left. Yeah, so this is it. Okay, so before we close out, I just observe in my in our login, whenever we are logged in, we are not returning the role. So the role is important for us to be able to identify a logged in user. So what we are going to do is we will go over here to our login method here in our users management service. So when we log in, we just want to return the role again so we can collect it at the front end and use to authenticate the user on the front end. I'm just going to say response dot set row. I'm just going to say users dot get row. So this is going to add the row to the response so we can collect it at the front end. So let me just start and rerun this. Okay, that seems to be running. Let's just log in again and see. Click on this to log in. So we can see now we are the role of the user is being returned here. All right, so let's proceed to create our Angular front end to consume this endpoint. So I'm going to my terminal. I'm going to get it a little bit big here. I'm going to set it to where I just going to see to this folder. I'm going to create my Angular application here. So first of all, you should need to have Angular. If you are new to Angular, you need to have Angular CLI installed. So just go to angular.dev to CLI setup and you're going to get this. And you also need to have Impl installed, but I believe you already have this. So here we are going to be making use of the latest Angular, which is Angular 17. So I'm just going to create a new Angular project using ng new. The project name, I'm just going to call this users management Angular. Let's just make it call it Angular. And it's going to tell us which of the style to use. I'm going to be making it of CSS. And it's going to tell me, do I need a server-side rendering? We are not going to be using that here, but in future we might probably want to do that. So let's just say yes, it's not going to take up anything. So it's going to configure our Angular project for us. Okay, this has been successfully configured. So I'm going to my Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open it up there. Here, I'm going to create a new folder and make this a little bit up. Open folder. That was going to be users management Angular. And here, I'm just going to run npm. I'm going to open my terminal here. I'm going to run npm I to properly install my dependencies in my package.json. So it's going to properly install it if for those that were not installed properly. So that has been done. So I'm just going to run my application to check if it's run correctly. ng save to run it. It's currently building and bootstrapping. So you can see our application is successfully run. So let me just go to my local, to the URL, which is localhost 4200, and let's see. So you can see this is our Angular and default. It's currently run. So if we observe, we can see this is a little bit different from the old Angular that we are used to. So this is Angular 17, and we are going to be making use of the Angular new features. So you can go to angular.dev That's the official documentation page for Angular 17, the new Angular. We can see that we can just go to docs, and we can just go over here and do. So if you want me to make a comprehensive course on Angular 17, you can also let me know in the comment section. So for now, let's just get this project up and running. So let's create our components and our service. So if I open over here, my source file, I open my, before then we can see we have our main.server. So now Angular now have server-side rendering. If I click here, you can see some configuration there. So if I open my app, here we can see we have our config.server and our app.config, and we have our route. So a lot, some things has been changed. So there's no, this no problem, Angular course. So let's just move further. So we are going to proceed by creating our component. So we are going to be having a footer, a login, a nav, a profile, a register page, an update user page, a user list page, and we're going to be having a guard and a user service. So let's quickly generate that. So we're going to be making use of the Angular CLI. So to create our component, let's just do ng generate c component. Let's just call this nav. Let's create our nav component. So that's been generated for us. We can see over here our nav component is there. So in the same time, let's also create our another component. Let's call this, let's create a footer component that has been created for us. Let's also create our login that has been created. Let's create a profile component. Let's create a register component. It's going to be for registration. Let's create an update user component. Then let's create our user management page, and let's call that user list. And those has been done, as we can see over here. So let's create a service class which is going to hold our method for making HTTP call to our endpoint. I'm just going to call it ng generate service. I'm just going to call this users. It's going to be a user service. And that has been created over here. Then at the same time, I'm also going to create a guard. Since we are going to be using guard, I want to make some of my endpoint accessible to the admin only and some accessible to the users. I'm just going to create a guard, which is ng generate guard. I'm just going to call it users as well. I'm just going to click on the can activate, and we can see over here that has been created. So if I go to my service, you can see my user service here, my users guard here, and other of my components. So we are just going to go quickly and create our methods in our user service class. So I'm going to bring this a little bit down, and here I'm going to write my implementation. So yes, I'm going to just put this a little bit back. So first of all, I'm going to be making use of HTTP client. So I'm going to import HTTP client and HTTP headers from common/http. So over here, I'm just going to create my base URL. I'm going to call this private base URL, and that's going to be, let me just go over here, and that's going to be localhost. This be that. That's going to be HTTP localhost. My port is 1010. So on the constructor, I'm going to inject my HTTP, inject my HTTP client here. So I'm just going to call this private HTTP going to be HTTP client. So I'm just going to go over down and create my methods for making an API call. So first, I'm just going to create my login method. For this logged in, it's going to take in an email. It's a string. This is TypeScript. It's going to take in a password. This is a string. And this is going to return a promise of an object. We just call the data type any. And we're just going to say const URL. Let's just build our URL, which is, let's use this object literal. It's going to be this variable. It be here, variable is that. These dots are basic URL. When you go to auth, let's just check where's the login URL. When you go to auth/login, so let me just copy that. Go to auth/login. It should be and go to auth/login. These are base URL. So we just want to wrap our implementation in a try and catch. Let's got this error. If there's an error, we're going to throw the error. Let's just throw the error. So over here, I'm just going to say create an object of my response. I'm going to say just use an await. It's going to use the for HTTP to make a post call. Let's just call this data type any, and it's going to make a post to our URL. It's going to pass in an object of email and password. That's going to be the body. I'm just going to expect a promise. I'm just going to say to promise. So here I'm just going to return the response I'm going to get. So that's that. Next, I'm going to create a registration. So I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to paste it here. I'm just going to call this register. This is going to take in my user data, which is going to be any, and it's going to take in my token. So we need a token, which is a string. Remember, when we want to register a user, which we saw, we need to pass in an authorization, which is going to be our appearer token. We need to also pass in our body. So that is what we are doing here. We're passing in a token, which we are going to be getting when we log in a user. So the path is going to be auth/register. And here I'm just going to, it's going to be a post request. This is going to be a URL, and here is going to be my user data. And I'm going to pass in the headers as well. So here I'm just going to create my header. I'm going to call this headers, which is going to be new HTTP headers. And this is going to be authorization, which is going to be the bearer. And I'm just going to pass in my token value, which I'm going to get when making, which is going to be passing from calling this method. So I'm going to pass in my headers over here. Then I'm going to return my response. So this is our register. And method. So I'm also going to create a method to get our users. Let me zoom this out a little bit. So I'm just going to copy this as well. I'm going to paste it over here, and I'm going to make some little modification. Let's just call this get all users, and this is just only going to pass in a token, and the endpoint is just going to be, the route is going to be admin slash get all users. Let me just be sure that that's exactly what it is. Get all users, admin slash get all users. So let me just copy this here, make sure it's correctly get there. And here this is going to be my headers. I'm just going to make a get request, and I'm going to pass in my URL. This time there's no body, and my header remains. I'm going to return the response. If there's error, I'm going to throw it. So I'm also going to create a method to get profile details of the login user. I'm just going to call this get your profile. It's going to take in a token as well, and the URL is going to be, let me just get this here, and this is it. And this is a get request. Everything seems fine. I'm also going to create another method to get, I think I've gotten all users. I'm going to create to get a user by ID, and also to delete a user. So copy that, move it over here. Let's just call this get users by ID. Is going to pass in an ID and a token. So let's just call this user ID, which is a string, a token. So here is going to be admin, and there will be admin slash get users. Then I'm going to be passing in the user ID. I'm just going to do something like this. User ID is going to pass in the user ID as we see here. Get user by ID, we get user by ID, and passing in the user ID here. So that's exactly what we are doing. Then I'm going to make a get request. I'm going to pass in our headers again, which is our token, and that is that. So I'm going to create another method to delete a user and then to update a user. I'm just going to copy this as well. I'm going to call this delete user. It's going to pass in the user ID and token, and it's going to be admin slash delete, and this is going to be delete request and header, and everything seems fine. I'm going to create to update user. Copy this again, just scroll down, paste it here. Let's call this update user. We're going to pass in a user ID. Then I'm going to pass in a user data as well. It's an object. Let's just call it n. Then it's going to go to admin slash update. Let's just make sure that's it, to update the user. Admin slash update seems fine. Then it's going to be a put request. I'm passing the URL. I'm also going to pass in our body to it, then our headers, and that looks fine. So that is that. I'm also going to create some authentication method as well. Let's call this um, methods. So, for example, I'm just going to first of all create to log out. Here, it is going to return a void, doesn't return anything. So, first of all, the way our application is whenever a user is logged in, we are going to collect the role of the user and the token, and we are going to store it on our local storage. Whenever we are making a HTTP call to access data, we are going to be passing in the token as long. And whenever we log out, we are basically clearing that token and removing those tokens from our section. So whenever we want to make other calls and those tokens are not there, we won't be able to do that. So if we are logging out, we just want to check first of all if our let's see if our local storage is not undefined. Let's say if it's not undefined, then we're just going to remove our local storage to remove the items we stored. So here we're removing token. I'm also going to remove the role because we're going to be storing a token and the role of the logged in user. So this is our log out. Whenever we do this, we remove these items and the user will not be able to get authenticated and perform operations. So let's also create other method to check if a user is authenticated. Let's call this authenticated. Is the user authenticated is going to return a boolean. We're going to see shortly where this method will be useful. So first of all, I'm just going to just copy this, so we'll be very fast. If the local storage is not undefined, I'm just going to say cons token. Let's just get the token equals to local storage dot get item, and that's token. And we are just going to return true if the token is there, and we're just going to return false if the token is not there. So I'm just going to probably make this code a bit very short and just saying create a negate. So what this does is this is going to what's this? This is going to return true if the token is there, and it's going to return false if the token is not there. So here I'm just going to, if the local storage is not, there's no data there, there's no instance of the local storage, I'm just going to return false. That means there's no token in it. So it's just going to be false. So that's that. So I'm just going to create this to check if it is an admin and if it is a user. Let's just do this quickly and say is admin. So this I'm just going to check if it has a role, and here I'm just going to check if the role is an admin. So here return, let's just call this role. Let's say return true if the role is an admin, and if it's not, it's going to return false. So I'm just going to copy this again to check if it is a user. So these methods are going to be used in our guard to guard our endpoint and to determine which URL or which routes are going to be accessible by admins and by users. So we're going to see how this does. So here, let me just say this user. So yeah, so if it's an admin, that means the role is going to be a user. That if it's a user, her role is going to be a user. If it's an admin, her role is going to be an admin. If it's authenticated, it's going to have a token in the local storage. To log out, we're just going to clear the token and clear the role. So this is our service class. So before we go to our next implementation, we are going to go to our config, which is app.config.ts, and we are going to kind of not say register, but for us to make this HTTP client works and for it to create a single throughout our application, we are going to register something in our app.config. So here we are going to import provider HTTP clients from common HTTP. Let's just do that. Provider HTTP client. Just trying to check if if it's going to auto import for me. Provider H does not, so let's just import it. Import provider HTTP client from this. So I'm just going to register this over here. I'm just going to put a comma here. I'm just going to do this. So this is going to make sure that we are able to make HTTP calls by having a single instance of it. So that is that for our service class. Let me quickly write my guard, which we are going to be using in our routes. I haven't configured my routes. I'm going to do this, but let's take it step by step. So for now, let's configure our guard to be able to authenticate a login user as either an admin or a user, and we are going to be using it to guard our route. So here, before we proceed, first of all, I'm just going to import my user service which we just created. Let's just import user service. And also, let's also import inject, which we'll be using to inject that. Inject, I think this is a small letter I. Inject, and also let me use import my router, which I'll be using to like navigate. So over here, I'm just going to duplicate this. This is going to be our user guard. This is just going to be an admin guard. So here I'm just going to create an if statement. This is going to be if I'm just going to first of all inject, use the inject to inject my user service. If user service now dot is authenticated, if it is authenticated, then return true, else if it not, return false, return false. Then same way I'm going to, we can also redirect, let's just add that. Also quickly use the inject to redirect as well, router dot navigate, and we're going to be navigating to the login page, which I'm going to write shortly. So let's just keep that here. So yeah, so what we are doing, if a user is trying to access a route that is not meant for him, is not going to allow that user to access that, and is going to navigate the user to the login page. So let's also do this for the admin. So let me just space it here. So this time around is going to be is admin, as we saw earlier, is going to return to S, is going to navigate to a login page. So yes, so this is that. Let me just get rid of this big inject. I'm not using that. So we are going to proceed. So we are going to start writing our component. So I'm going to start with my footer. Seems to be more easier. So here I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm just going to say div, call this div, and call this footer. And here I'm just giving the class of footer. So within here, I'm just going to have a span, and this is just going to be called this Beacon Dev. That's the name of this channel. I'm just going to say all rights reserved. Actually, the rights belong to us all, so I'm just putting a copy, something like that. I'm just going to say the current year, which is 2024. So, yep, this seems to be, why is it telling me end of name this? So that seems to be okay. So, yep. So if I go to my footer.component.ts, we can see that there's kind of changes compared to the Angular we are used to. Now we now have a standalone component, unlike before where we have to have a module and we have to register each component in a module. But for this now, a component is can add as a standalone and can have its own import. So behaving as a standalone means that this component can be a module on its own, and it can have imports. There can be services that depends on it, and you can put a lot of stuff here. So this primary not an Angular 17 course, but I just want to throw that up. So for the CSS styling, I'm not going to be writing everything down. I already have CSS pre-written, so I'm just going to bring that up here. And a link to all of this is in the description below. You can click on it and just copy the styling along as the course proceeds. So that is for the footer, and I'm going to proceed to write my nav bar. So here I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm just going to say nav. Here I'm just going to say on other list, I'm just going to have a list item, which is going to have a ref, and here I'm just going to call this Fagon dev, and here I'm just going to have an ng if. I'm going to conditionally show this, so I'm just going to say the ng if, that should be a small letter. I'm just going to say if not is authenticated, then I'm going to, over here, I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm just going to say router link. I'm just going to navigate to my login. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it multiple times. I'm just going to explain what I'm doing here. I just want to be faster, so I'm doing this. So here I'm just going to have here profile. I'm just going to have here, just going to call this users management, MANT. I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to call this login. Do I even need that login? Okay. Obviously, we're just going to call this logout. So here is going to navigate to profile. I'm just going to create a route for profile. It should be small letter P. So here I'm going to create a route. I'm just going to call this users. Here I'm just going to create a route which is still login for here, logout. So I'm just going to write an on-click over here. So if you click here, I'm just going to run a method called log out. Okay, so here if it's authenticated, show this. If it's not authenticated, that means if you're coming for the page on the first time and you're not authenticated, it's going to show you Figon Dev, and it's going to show you login. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to call this, if it's authenticated, then you can show the profile. While for this, I'm just going to say if it's admin. I'm just going to write everything down here. I'm just going to fit, if it's an admin, then show a user's management page. If you're authenticated, you should have a log. If you are not authenticated, you should have a login. Why, if you are authenticated, let me remove this note. If you're authenticated, you should have a logout. So if you're an admin, you are going to see if after successfully logging as an admin, you're going to see the user's management, your profile, then your logout. While if you are not authenticated, you're going to see the figure dev and a login. So yep, so this is fine. So we can see over here is just throwing me an error. ng if directive was used in the template, but neither the directive or it was imported. You get to, it's telling us to import the common module. So I'm just going to copy that. So that same thing, this is not there. So I'm going to go to my nav.component where I'm going to be doing. We can see here now this can add a low as a standalone component, and it can actually have some modules, and you can put those imports here. So here I'm just going to import the common module quickly. Did I implement? Import common module. That's not really working. So from. I don't really like doing this. Let me just import one more. Let me search just right here. So it's going to come here. Yeah, common module from this. So I'm also going to be making use of the router. So let me import that as well. Route outlets. Also, the router link. This router link is going to make me to be able to use this router link here, and that should be ROU, not ROUTE, not ROW, one U. So let me just quickly correct that. Yeah. So let me register the common module, so it's not going to throw that error to me anymore. So I'm just going to put it in my imports, and we can see here the error over here is gone, but over here now it's telling us we don't have this, which we are going to do shortly. So let me register this as well. So we can see with this new Angular feature, we can actually have a component can actually act as a module as well, and you can just probably manage all your implementation within here rather than creating a separate module and importing. So that's a really cool stuff. So as well, I'm also going to create my variables for is authenticated. Let me just go over here. It's authenticated. Is admin. Just copy that. I'm just going to say is authenticated. So boolean by default should be false. Then is admin. The boolean by default should be false, and is user boolean by default should be false. Okay, so yep, so those are gone. Let me just create my logout as well. So I'm just going to say logout, going to be void, and I'm going to write implementation. So before then, I'm going to create a constructor. I'm going to inject my user service. So this is going to be a private read only. I'm not going to be modifying the data there. So I'm just going to call this user service, which is a user service. Service is going to auto import for me. I'm just going to have my empty body. So here, I'm just going to say for logging out, I'm just going to say user service. I think I should use an instance, which is this dot user service dot logout. I have a method called logout there, and it's going to log out. And when it logs out, I want to set these values to be false. I'm just going to say that I'll just I don't know why I'm adding this. I'm just going to say this dot. When I log out, I want to set the value to be false, because when I'm logging out, I'm actually clearing all token and rows. So yeah, so I'm also going to bring the on init as well. Init here is going to, where is that here? Going to implement the on init. I'm just going to create an ng on init over here. And for this, if I'm just, whenever an instance of this component is created, it's going to run the on init. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to say this dot is authenticated equals to user service dot is authenticated. So depending on the result, is going to set it to be to this. So I'm just going to do the same for is admin and is user. Yeah, so this value is going to deflect over here. So for my styling, I'm just going to my where I wrote my nav styling. Just carry out this. I'm just going to copy it. Sure. Yeah, I think that's that. I think I should just cut it. I don't think I will be needing that anymore. So cut it and I'm going to paste it over here. So yep, so this looks fine. So before we proceed to write other components, let me go to my app.html. Let me get rid of this default stuff here and create our own custom routing. So get rid of, what's that? Hmm. This is my app.component. So what's going on here? So just get rid of everything here and I'm just going to bring in my app, my nav bar, which is nav. Then I'm going to bring in my router. I'm going to bring in my app footer. So how am I able to get this? If I go to my nav, I'm just going to see the identifier is app nav, which is this. But for my footer, the identifier is app footer. So that's basically what we are doing here, app nav, app footer. Okay, so I think we are getting some error here. This is not a known element, which is fine. What we are going to do, we are going to import this on the app.component.ts. So this is a standalone. So currently we have our router applet. So we're going to bring in our nav components and we are going to bring in our footer component. So if I go back here, we can see our error is gone because we've imported those over here. So I'm quickly going to configure my route so we can probably see how this works before I implement other components. So here I'm going to this is my route. I'm just going to bring my route here. I'm just going to have a path which is, let's just call this a login, and here component is going to be log in component. I'm going to just have other paths. So I'm just going to have a register. I'm going to have a profile. I'm going to have an update. What's that? Updates. I'm going to pass in the ID. I'm just going to have the users management. And here I'm just going to have a wildcard. If you probably enter any URL that's not defined, it's going to direct you to the component I'm going to put in here. So here also, we're just going to have an empty. You just also passing empty is also going to redirect. Let's probably use redirect over here. Let's say redirect to, let's just say login, and let's just say path match. Let's create match full. So also you can also redirect when you just type in stuff here. So this for register, let's just call this register components. Register component for profile. Is it that's okay? It was imported. So for profile, let's call this profile. Why is my laptop hanging? Profile component. Oh, that's crazy. Profile. I'm not really doing some heavy stacks here. Profile components for updates. Let's call this update component for users. This is going to be user list components, and for a wildcard, let's just log in. Let's redirect to a login, and for redirect, let's also go to login. So what was profile and do here? Let me get rid of this. So let's check if it is running. Let me bring this up. Everything seems to be fine. So let me go over here. Let me refresh. We can see our navbar is here and our footer is here as well. So if I go to slash login, you can see login work. If I go to profile, what do I do? Profile. You can see profile works. If I go to, let's say, users, you can see user list work. So I think this is working fine, but we have some little bit of white at the side. So let's just get rid of that. So I'm just going to my index.style.css. I'm just going to say for everything, margin should be 0. So let's just check, let me refresh. You can see the edge margin is gone. So let's continue our implementation. Things look a bit fine. So let's write our login implementation. So over here, I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm just going to pick it up. So here, let's give this a class. Let's call this container. And here, I'm just going to give a h2. I'm just going to call it login. And I'm just going to give a p. I'm just going to, if there's error, I just want to display this, which is error message. I'm just going to write it down. So for now, I'm going to give it a class and it's going to be error message. I'm also going to use a common module here. I'm just going to use an ng if is going to be, if there's error message, which we're going to write. So if there's this, it's going to show this. If this is not there, then it's not going to do that. So let's just create our form quickly and submit. Submit. When the user submits that, let's just do handle submit. I'm just going to create this when I'm done with this. So here, let me have a div. And within this div, I'm just going to have a label. Let's call this email. And I'm going to have an input. And I'm going to use an engine model. It's going to be ng model from the form module, and this going to be email. Is going to collect this more for use for two-way binding. It collects the email from the user and it save it in our component, and it could just to collect data from user, and also can also be used to return. It's a two-way binding, and let's just, what am I doing? So let's just give it a name and let's call it email. And here, let's say, let's leave that. So let me copy this in two places. I'm going to copy this. I think I should copy everything. Just copy this to this place. I'm going to paste it. I'm just going to call this password. Before that, I'm just going to give this a class. I'm going to call this form group. I already have the class style written down. So I'm just going to do this. Same here. It is going to be a password. This is going to be a password. And this is going to be password. And this is going to be type is a password. So everything does not look set. Why is this not div? Why is this form not closing up? Yeah. Let me cut this right away. This. Okay, yeah, I think I should have used the quotation here. Yeah, that was it. This error can happen, So I'm just going to add a submit button. recording. Type is submit. I'm just going to call this login. Type is submit. And I'm going to bring my login styling here. I'm just going to copy that. Are we done? Just going to copy it here and just cut it. I'm going to my CSS. I'm just going to put it over here. So things looks fine. So for now, we are seeing that handle submit is not created and ng if from our common module is not there, and we need a form module as well. So I'm going to my login components. I'm just going to import them over here. Common module forms module, and this has been imported. So I'm going to write my handle submit method. I'm going to some async function name. Let's just call this handle submit. Call it handle submit, and it's going to return a void. So I'm just going to create my variable to hold our email, which is string. It's going to hold our password, which is string as well, and it's going to hold. Let's just have this error message, which as again go. So if I go over here, we can see our error is gone. So let's continue to do what we do. Okay, so when what is going on here? Okay, so when let me just get this off a little bit so we can see what we are typing. So if a user clicks on some, I'm just going to write an if statement to check if everything is fine. So let's just say if there's no email or there's no password or the password field is empty, then I'm just I'm just going to give it an error message, and I'm just going to say email and password is required. So you know what, let's just have a method to show the error. Let me just have a custom method down here that is going to be showing my errors. So I'm just going to call this show error. Show error is just going to collect a message, which is a string, and here I'm just going to say this dot error message equals to the message. I'm just going to set timeout, set timeout. I'm just going to pass in the function, and here I'm just going to say this dot error message. I'm just going to play it up for this. Just going to do for 3 seconds. Okay, so let me make use of this method over here and just call that. Just do this, and let's say this. Let's reference the. Yep, so that is that, and I'm just going to return. So we're going to continue to write our implementation down. So I'm just going to put this in a try and catch block. If there's an error, I just say this is any. I'm just going to show the error message here. Just going to say this dot. And why is this happening here? This dot show error message. I'm just going to say error dot message. Extract the message. So here in my try block, I'm just going to make HTTP call to my service. Before then, I'm just going to import my service here, my service class. So I'm just going to say import user service, which we created, and I'm just going to auto wire this in my constructor. So I don't have my constructor, I'm just going to create it private. Let's make it a read only user service. Let's make this a small letter, and yep. So I'm also going to be using a routing so that when we've logged in, we need to navigate to our profile page. So I'm just going to also bring in my routing. So let's just for this import my router here, import router. Where is it? Yeah, from Angular router. So I'm just going to do a comma here. I'm just going to private router, which is of the router. So yeah, everything looks fine. Let me just move this to next line so we understand what we are doing here. Just kind of make the code cleaner. Let me format this. Yeah, I think that looks fine. So let's make a HTTP call and collect our response, and if it's successful, we are going to navigate to the profile page. So this is going, let's call this response equals to await this dot user service dot login, and we're going to be passing in an email, our email and our password, and I'm just going to say create an if statement. Remember, whenever we logged in, here's our login endpoint here. We are going to get a status code, message, token, rule. So whenever we logged in, we want to access all this data, get our token, get our role, and then probably the status code. So I'm just going to use the status code to check if we actually, if our login was successful. So I'm just going to say if response dot status code equals to equals to 200. If it's 200, then that means we've successfully logged in. Else we've not yet logged in, probably an error occur. I'm just going to show the error. I'm just going to say this dot show error. I'm just did I say show error? I'm just going to say the response dot message. I think if there's an error, it's going to be passed in as the message probably. So yeah. So yep, if this is successful, I'm going to save my item. Just say local storage dot set item. I'm going to set my token. I'm just going to collect it from our response dot token. And at the same time, we are going to also set our role and also the role of the login user, which is response.role, as we can see over here. So this role is going to be used to authenticate the user on our front end, both the role and the token. So yeah, so everything seems fine. Then if this has been done, then navigate to let's navigate to our profile page. When you successfully log in, we want to take you to your profile page. Profile. So yep, so this seems fine. Let's just make sure that our app is running. Okay, it's running. So let's test this out. So slash login. So yep, so it says fine. Let's just call this. We have admin. Let me perhaps say a wrong user name, the wrong password. Let's just say login. Okay, it's not showing. Let me just check the error. Am I able to console login error? I don't think so. Let me check. Nah. So let me just try and console log. error somewhere. Probably this, let's just create an empty field and probably just, okay, email and password. Okay, that's this one here. Okay, so here, let me console log the response. Console.log response. Just see that. Refresh again. And let's just say admin at Gmail. Let's say user. Let's pass in what? Why is it that by passing something is going to auto refresh? Let me just pass the wrong password. Status code 500 message path credentials. So I should be able to get this. Okay, so I think let me just copy that. Status code. If it's not 200, this error I should be able to get the response dot message. Let me SSH message. I should be able to get this because I was able to get a response. Okay. If this is this S, yeah, able to get this and show. So let's just try it again. Passing the wrong password, login. I'm not getting my error here. What's the problem? Let me just console log something here. Console.log not 200. Let's check that. I can says that something wrong. Not 200 is showing. So why is this system not this show error not working? Okay, well, I was gonna here. The selection status code. Just check that. So let's say admin, uh, admin, I'm passing the wrong person. I log in. The status code. I'm not getting the message. Okay, let's try this again. Passing the wrong password. I'm getting a message bad credentials. Okay, I think that works. I don't really know. Okay, let's just probably let me just get rid of this. So yep. Let me probably properly log in now with the right credential. Let's see admin and let's call this the right password. So we can see we were able to log into the profile page. So when I refreshed again, we can see our logout and users management page. And so yep, so our login has worked. So we are going to now to write our profile page implementation. Okay, so for our profile page, I'm going to go to close it up. I'm going to go to my profile page. I'm going to just skip this. Just create a div and give this a class of container. And within here, I'm going to just, you know what, let me just come here and copy things and paste. Just want to be fast, so I'm just going to come here, copy this profile page. I'm just going to paste this here first. I'm just going to have a H2. I'm just going to call this profile information. I'm going to have a P. This is going to be a name. I'm just going to collect the profile information from my endpoint. I'm just going to call this profile info. If it exists, I'm going to get, like if I go to my profile, where's my profile get info? If I go to my get info, okay, I think, let me just check this again, just try to run this endpoint. Let me log in and run this again. Login and copy the token and check login successful. Copy the token, get users info. So this is our response. We're going to be getting status code. Our users is the object. So here I'm just going to get all the response. I'm going to dot. If there's a response which we are collecting as profile info, I'm just going to get our users. And from our users, if there's a value there, I'm just going to get the name, which is this name here. So at the same time, I'm going to get the email and other data as well. So that's that. I'm going to copy this 3 times. I'm going to call this email. I'm going to call this city. I'm going to call getting the email here. And here I'm getting the city. So I'm just going to have a button here, and this is just going to be update profile. So here I'm going to, what we want to do, we want admin to be able to update their profile, but we don't want users to be able to update their profile. So I'm just going to use ngIf directive. I'm just going to say if profile info, let's just say if profile info dot our users data dot role. If the role is an admin, then show this update profile button. If not, then don't show it. So here, if you click on this, let's just add a click here. Then it should navigate to an update profile page. So here, I just want to run it to trigger this function. I just call this update profile and just want to pass in the ID. So we're going to copy this and here the ID. So I'm just going to create this update profile down. Before I do that, let's bring in our common module. So we can use the ngIf. So I'm just going to go to my profile components. I'm going to import it over here, common module. And yep, I think I should. You can see our error is gone. But now I have to create this variable and this function update profile. So let's just start with this update profile. Here I'm just going to update profile takes in an ID and is going to navigate. So before we proceed, let's just bring in our module. Here I'm just going to be bringing our on init. Why is this not importing? This should be from in our core. Okay, yeah, on init is in our core. I think my laptop is a bit slow. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Oh, let's continue. That's crazy. I'm going to import our user service. I'm going to import router. Don't import the router from Express. Instead, import the router from Angular. So I'm going to create my, let me just implement the on init here, and here I'm just going to use the ng on init here, and I'm going to write my control constructor where I'm going to inject what we need. Let's just bring in our let's begin our user service, which is this. User service, what's that? This, check this input properly. So that's, let's also bring our router, and yep, just create an empty body. So here, if you click on update profile, I'm just going to navigate this dot router dot navigate. I'm going to navigate to my update profile page, update where I can update a user. I want to pass in the ID. As if I go to my route, we can see that when we're updating a user, we are passing in the ID as well. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's create our feeds. Let's create our error message feed and our profile info feed. So I'm just going to go over here, come here below, profile info, just any, and let's just say error message, which is a string, and by default is empty. So when the on init is called, when an instance of this, when this component is mounted, so we just want to, make some calls to our endpoint and get the users. So I'm just going to put this in a try and catch. So here this is going to be any, and I'm just going to create my error message. Let me go to my login. Let me bring this show error here. So let's use this. Just put this down some here. I'm just going to show this error. I'm just going to pass in the error and the message, extract the message from it. I'm just going to reference that. This, and here error dot then colon. That's crazy. So here I'm just going to make HTTP call to get my profile info. So I'm just going to call this const. I'm just going to call this say token. I'm just say local storage dot get item, which is our token. I'm just going to have an if statement. If not token, if token is not present, I'm going to say just throw error and say, hey, token is not there. Throw new error, which is going to be catch over here and show here. I'm going to say no token found. Else, if there's nothing, I'm just going to say this dot profile info equals to, I'm just going to await this dot user service dot get profile info, and we're passing in our token. So yep, that's that. So why is this await not train await. So I'm just going to make this engine async. All right, so we don't really need this void. I just, yeah. So this seems okay. So let's just test this out and see if it's going to work. So yeah, we can see it's currently working, and that's fine. That's fine. So currently we can see. So let me check my CSS. I don't have my styling yet, so let's just bring our styling from our profile page. Copy it down. My ends here. Just cut it and just get rid of this so we can use the next style. And I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to paste it there. So when I go over here again and refresh, you can see our profile information is there. If I click on update, it's going to go to my update user profile, update user component. So let's continue. So let's write our update user page, which is this. So I'm going here, I'll go to my update user. We are gradually coming to an end. So yeah, so let me kind of make this a little bit fast. So just have my div as usual class. This should to complete. I don't like one stuff is so container, then I was gonna okay, I didn't put my column. Then I'm going to let's just drag this down. And copy that and paste that here. Then I'm going to have my H2. I'm going to cut out update user. I'm going to have my form again on submit. On submit. Let me just work with that. Okay. I have my name, input, name, and I'm going to have my ng model, which equals to our user data dot name, and I'm going to call this class form group. So I'm just going to copy and paste this thing and replicate for other feeds. So here I'm just going to call this email. I'm going to call this role. I'm going to call this city. And I'm just going to have a button here that says updates, and the type is going to be a submit. So if you click on it, it's going to trigger the update user. So this is going to be email, this is going to be role, this is going to be city. So city, role, email. So everything seems to be set here. So I'm going to use the form module so we can have use the engine model. So I'm going to over here again. I'm going to use the common module as we saw. I'm going to use the form module and I'm going to let me just add all my imports. I'm going to be navigating. I'm going to be using engine on init. So I just do that. Init. I'm going to be importing my user service, which is something we have to import everywhere. I'm going to import. Come on, get away. I'm going to import router activated route, and here I'm just going to use my on init. Implement on init ng on init. Here, this is to update a user. So I'm going to, before then, I'm just going to create my constructor quickly. And where I'm just going to collect all my injects, private, read only, user service, user service. I'm just going to private, read only, router, then private, read only. Let's call this route. This is our activated route. And let's just create an empty body. So I kind of have a little bit of spelling problem here. So here I'm just going to have my user ID, which I'm going to get. I'm going to have my user data, which we were using before, which is any. I'm just going to create it on empty. Our error message is a string of for now empty. So I go to my HTML page. We can see I just create an update user, so we'll be fine. So here I'm just going to say update user. And for now, just won't really do anything. Let's probably just take this. Let's make this an async. Let's just handle the other ones first. So for now, if whenever my component is created, I just want to get the users by ID, because whenever you are navigating to to this update user, you are actually passing in a user ID, which we saw in our route. When you are coming to this update component, you are passing a user ID. So we want to use this user ID to get all the users, to get that user details, and then populate the details to these fields. So that's what we want to do. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to create a method. I'm just going to say for this one, I'm just going to call this get user by ID. So I'm just going to say this dot user ID equals to, let's collect user ID from the param. We're going to be using route dot snapshot dot param dot get, then the ID. So remember in our route it was called ID. So it was called ID. So whatever is being passed in, for you to get that, you have to use the ID to reference an ID reference to get it, which is what we are doing here. So that's that. I'm just going to get my token since we only want admin to be able to get a user by ID. So I'm just going to collect my token from local storage dot get item, which is token. That's how we saved it. I'm just going to say if not this dot user ID. So we just want to have some validation, or not. I'm saying not. This is not Python, or not token, because Python you can just use English to write the stuff. Then, or I'm using one that's supposed to be two. Then I'm just going to this dot show error. I'm just going to pass create a method and say user ID or token zero. So let's say an admin just probably just go to slash any random ID, or let's say there's no ID and you are trying to do this, going to just show you this error. So let's just come over here. As usual, let's just copy our error and just paste it down to avoid wasting time. Yeah, so that seems fine. Then for here, once this is done, let's return to break. So let's continue with our try and catch. And let me just call this error of type any. I'm just going to say this. I'm always having typing issues. I'm just going to say error dot message. And yep, so within our try block, I'm just going to say let user data or user details, whatever we want. Let's just say return await and say this dot user service. Man, come on, why are you slow? That's crazy. This is I don't know. I think I need to restart the system. But nevertheless, so let's just manage it until we are done. Ah shit. So this dot user service, then we are going to pass in no, I'm not passing anything. Dot get users by ID, then we are going to pass in the user ID, then we're going to pass in our token. Yep. Then we're just going to say this dot user data. Is it this dot user data? User data. Let me just call this user data response so we can differentiate it. This dot user data equal to, we can say user data response, right? Yeah, well, I don't want to get the password as well, because getting user by ID is actually, which I should have probably not done, is getting the password along, which is this. I don't want to get the password along. So I'm just going to destructure this. I'm just going to say const. I'm just going to get the name alone, email, role, city equal to user response dot our users. So let me just go over here again. This is our users, this is the response, and this is our user. We will have an array of, or we'll have our details of the user. So let's just copy that. So this user data now is going to be equal to this. So yep, so this looks cool. Yep, then I think that's that. Then for update user, when the user click on the update, let's just quickly do something. Let's collect this value and save it. So I'm just going to first of all prompt to save user wants to confirm. I just call this confirm equal to confirm and just say, are you sure you wanna update this user? So if it clicks on yes, then I'm going to proceed. I'm just going to say if it's not confirmed, then I'm just going to return, don't do anything. But if it's confirmed, I'm going to proceed by creating a try and catch block, catch error, and this is of type any. I'm just going to say this dot show error error dot message. So in the try block, I'm just going to save those data. I'm going to update those data rather. So first of all, I'm just going to get the token, which we all know const token equals to local storage dot get item, which is token. So if there's token, we can probably just proceed, but I'd like to add validations to my code. I'm just going to throw, if there's no token, I'm just going to throw error. I'm just going to say token not found as I'm going to call this response and await this dot user service dot update user. I'm going to pass in user ID. I'm going to pass in user data, and I'm going to pass in a token and just check if it's successful. If response dot status code equal to 200, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to navigate this the router dot navigate. I'm going to navigate to the users page. This is users. So yeah, so let's test this out quickly. Okay, let me just copy my CSS styling and then of the users registration page. Let me just copy. Is it registration? No, it's not registration page. This is the update user page. Yeah, so let's copy this. So make sure this is well copied. For that, get rid of that. Come over here, go to the update user, paste it there. Come here, refresh. All right, so I think inspect that to see what the problem is. Right, profile, update profile. I'm not able to get my details here. So let's just see what the problem is. Actually, let me also log my response. Oh, so I'm not calling my get user by ID. Okay, let's just call it out here. This dot get user by ID. So yeah, so on init, let's run this method. So as our component is mounted, is initialized, then let's get the user by ID. So here we can see our user data is here. So let me change my city to or is it this double to Delhi? I think I will visit Delhi one day. Let me update it, and it did not navigate. So let's just check what the problem is. Let me go to profile again. it was not updated because the city still remains. So let me probably just console log my response. Update user, let me just console log my response. So.log response. Let's see what is going on. If it's not 200, if it's 200 s, if it's not, probably just navigate s. Let's just run error again. If it's not 200, let's say this dot show error and say res dot message. Yeah. So let me refresh that. Let me just scroll this. Mumbai. Mumbai is BAI update. Let's see. The update button if we clicking. So update user. Let me just check if the update button is actually clicking. Update user on submit. It's not on submit. That's crazy. It's ng submit. Yeah. On submit is ng submit. Submit a JavaScript stuff. So let's just try this again. Because my I observed my button was not clicked. So Mumbai, let's visit Mumbai. Are you sure you want to update this user? Yep. User successfully updated. We can see it here. And response status code is 200. It did not navigate. Why? Why? Um, I should have navigated. It was showing me this. Okay. Status, not status. Okay, I think I was too fast. I didn't spell it well. It's 80. Status code equals to 200. Equal. Let me add a triple equal to also check for the type. So, yep, let me check this back to, let's see. I think our server is making this into re-render. Yeah. Let's check it to Delhi update. Are you sure you want to update? Yep, we can see it has been navigated to our user list page. So now let's implement the user list. So let's write the users management page. So we are going to be very fast. So I'm going to go over this is the users management user list page. So I'm going to just pause this video and quickly write the implementation. So here, this is just a users management page with a table. I have ID, name, image, city, actions, and I'm going to my components. I'm going to write the implementation, and I'm going to explain it. So before then, let me just go over here. Let me copy the style on my users management page, and let me paste it here. I'm going to just quickly write the implementation in the users component. I'm going to explain it. So I've pre-written the implementation. So here in my user list component, this is just the HTML template, which is this. So here and this is just a form, which is a table, and whenever an admin goes to this page, what it does is it makes a HTML call, HTML, it makes a HTTP call to get all users, which we already wrote down in our user service. So when you get all users, it displays all the users in our HTML page here, which we have here, call it the ID, name, image, city, and they're also buttons. So when you click on the delete, what it does is it runs the execute the delete method. What it basically does, it's just as if you want to delete a user. If you want to delete a user, what it does is it makes just goes to this delete user and pass in the user ID and token, and that user is being deleted. And whenever the user is deleted, it just reloads the user. That's going to just get the list of the users that are currently there. So if I also click on, you know, update a user, I collect the user ID and I go to, I execute the method to update a user and it just navigate to the update page. So when I test that, how I click on update, we can see it goes to the update page and it pass in the user. So as well, if I click on this update, it goes to the update page and pass in and renders the user details. So if I click on to update, let's call this London update, is been updated as we can see. So here, if I click on the add user as well, which is this add user, this button at the top here, it goes to the register page where I can register a user. So if I click on it now, add user, it goes to the register page and I have not written the implementation. So I'm going to do that quickly and also come around to explain. So a link to the code is in the description below. So I have pre-written the registration page. So this is just the registration form over here. It's very simple. So if I go over register here, we can see this is just the form here. So what I'm doing, as we all know, when you click on submit, it runs the handle submit. Engine model is this auto with data binding. And in the registration page, what I'm doing in the component is that I create a form data, just an object which have a name, email, password, role, and city. So if I click on the handle submit, it's just going to get all the inputs from the user and it's going to check if all the fields are correctly filled. If they are not filled, it's going to say please fill in all fields. If all the fields are correctly filled, it's just going to prompt if you want to really register this user. If you want to register a user, it's going to collect your token, which we already saw before. It's going to collect the token, bundle the form, and pass it to the registration method in the user service, and there is just going to register that user. So if the response code is 200, that means the user has been successfully registered. It's going to navigate to the user's management page. If not, it's going to show an error, and this is just our custom method to show an error for 3 seconds, which we saw how to do. So yeah, so that's that. And so let's test this out and see how it works. So here I'm going to add a user. I'm just going to call this Mary, Mary at gmail.com. Then password is, let's keep it simple, Mary. Then row, I can select a row. Let's make Mary an admin. And city, she's from, let's say, Salvador. Salvador is a city in Brazil. So click on register. It prompts me to, okay, it has been registered. And we can see here it navigated to the user's management page. And we can see Mary over here at the left. Click on delete, is deleted. And go to add user again. And if I try to register, it's going to tell me off it. I think it will render because of my server. Yeah, so if I go to add user, I click on register, it's going to say please fill in all fields, which staff, and until all fields are filled before I can proceed. So currently what we have now is anybody should be can go. If I try to go over, let's say, let me just log out, and has been logged out, let me log in as a user, and password is user, and has been logged in. We can see if I try to go to my, let's say, register route, which I'm not authenticated, we can see I can actually go to register route, but I won't be able to register because my token is for user, which our API will not be able to validate to register because of our backend implementation. But now I'm able to get to this route, which is not good. So we on implementation, we already have a guard which we already, implemented here, which we've written out, but we've not implemented the guard on our routing. So let's implement that guard to make sure that an admin can only access an admin route while a user can only access a user's route. So let's go to the route and let's import our guard. I'm just going to import This is going to be user guards, and I'm also going to import an admin guard as well. So over here in our, you know, in our endpoints, I'm just going to move this down. I'm just going to, in our register here, I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to add a command. I'm just going to say can activate, and I'm just going to say admin guard. So an admin can only access this route. So for the profile, everybody should be able to access this profile. So I can say can activate. What is this now? Why is this? Can activate. I can say an array of users guard and admin guards. So both users and admin can access this profile. So I can just say only admin because everybody who is logged in is basically happy. Both admin and user have an admin role. So let's just leave it at admin. So for updates, I will say can activate admin guard. So an admin only should be able to update, and to get all users route, the same thing can activate and admin guard. So admin only can access this route, and every other person should be able to redirect to login. So now I'm currently logged in. What's going on here? Let me just check my server. Is saying what's going on. Error evaluate SSRO main dot server. Okay. I think I should not. We're not really basically using SSL. So let me just run again. So I think it's running now. So let me refresh here. Okay, we can see we are very refreshed. Currently, I'm logged in as a user. As we can see, that's my profile info. And if I try to go to the register route, we can see I was redirected to the login because I'm not an admin. If I try to access the, let's say, users route to get or to I can manage my users, you can see I'm not allowed to access. I was logged into my login. I was redirected to my login page because why I've added these guards to our endpoint. So yeah, so this is the course. Let me log out again and log in as an admin so we can see if it works fine. Bad credential. Okay, my password is bad. Log in. We can see now I was logged in as an admin, and I can access the users management page. I can access the profile. If I try to go to users in the URL, I can actually access because I'm an admin. Yeah, so this is it. If this was helpful, give your like, your comment. Tell me how you feel about the video. If there's something you want me to improve on, let me know in the description and give a thumbs up. And follow and subscribe if you haven't.